the important things to remember is how we come into this world as human beings. The first part is that we're wired for connection. We went over that quite a few times. So I want to say, in a way, that's a bummer, because then we have to connect, right? It would be easier if we could be self-sufficient and take care of our own things. But I'm thinking that that's the human condition. If you can think about that, that's how we are, and that's the kind of species that we are, and that's how we have to be in the world. And then the other thing that we learned is that we have raw spots. So we have a trigger in us, and maybe there's many triggers, but we're talking about the one that feels like we might not be able to survive, or it feels very scary in terms of being close to our partner, who is the person that we're wired to in a connective kind of way. So those are the two things to start off with. And then in our natural state, I want to say we're all good and fine. We're at peace, we're happy, we have food, we talk to our friends, we have our lives, and everything goes well, and we can just live in what sometimes philosophers call the everyday or everyman or something like that. We're just living our lives and doing our practical things. And then sometimes things don't go very well. So we started off with this diagram where that is yourself, and you have the inner world, let's say, inner and the outer self or outer world. Or this is also the primary emotion and the secondary emotion. So we have two different kinds of ways of responding, because you do have a whole inner system that's checking like the weather inside of you, let's say, but then stuff comes in from outside, and then you have to respond to it up here sometimes. So then we talked about how when you have two people, that your conversation in an ordinary everyday way comes from down here. You're just chatting, it's everyday, ordinary, and then it can go over here, and I use the thing of put the toilet seat down. Please put the toilet seat down. And it can go down there and reach you, and if you're okay with it, then it stays down there, and you do great. Everything's fine. You keep moving along and living your life. But if it hits a trigger, let's say, and then you are afraid, and then it's going to go up into your secondary emotions. So the secondary emotions is then a response you're doing that's kind of like a coping mechanism. You're trying to protect yourself because it feels like you were told that you were a bad person and you always forget things, and maybe they don't like you at all because you always forget things. So that sends you up into there, and that's kind of hit your raw spot down there, which is the trigger that tells you things are not safe anymore. So there's also, and I drew this other little one, which is, you know, normally in your everyday life, we do have vulnerabilities, so if you can manage them yourself, it goes up here, and then you bring it down again. You can bring it down, and then you're okay again. You kind of deal with the world as it starts coming into you. Then I also drew this thingy over here, where you have, at the very top you have, I did it the other way around when I first showed you, but I'm thinking we're talking about going down a negative cycle, so I drew it the other way around. Okay, here you're connected, and everything's fine, and then you feel okay and not anxious, and you get more and more and more anxious. And then we talked about all the different things that could make you connected up here. You're friendly, responsive, your partner's friendly with you, and then all the way down here you're in the bedroom by yourself and your partner's gone off to have a beer with friends. Or in between somewhere there, it's something like you're asking your partner to help and he doesn't help, but you can kind of be okay and manage it. So only down here is what we're talking about in terms of that hold me tight conversation, or the time when your safety is being threatened, when you start triggering and doing these secondary behaviors. Okay? Anything you forgot about there? Any questions? Okay, good. So then yesterday I did this where down here you have this like circle, which is your happy place where you're fine, happy, content, not thinking about who am I or does anybody love me, or you're connected, you're warm, comfortable, everything. But then when you have these arguments, then mostly one partner is up here trying to get at you and the other one's down here trying to escape. And then the effort you have to make is one has to come up and the other one has to come down. And you remember the up and down? It's like you've disappeared, you left. And this one is pursuing and withdrawing. So that's just a diagram for you to remember where are you and what you have to do. Okay, so now we're going to the next part, which is forgiving injuries. And it's also creating a safe place or something like that, it's it. So forgiving injuries, so you have this little diagram here. And you start off here and then something bad happens and you go up there and then more and more and more and more it happens and you don't come down, so you're going to solidify this thing. It's going to become really hard and kind of impenetrable because you really, really have to be safe. So it piles on and it solidifies and the partner doesn't get it and does it, and it happens over and over and over and over again. And then eventually you go, why try? Because I tried 1,000,000 times, doesn't work, I already know, so why try? So you might stop trying, and then you're also going to say stuff about your partner. Like he's so mean, or she's just so hysterical all the time, or he wants me to do everything his way, or, you know, I've been hurt by my parents and he's hurting me in the same way and he just doesn't understand. So you start making a case against your partner. So how does it go back down? How do we get that back down again, right? We want to go. So how do we get that back down there? It's hard. So this is what we're learning here, because you probably all have this going on. Somehow a really solidified pattern there, which you kind of jump into and it starts going. And you're not quite sure how to do that or how to get out. So in a way we can say this is an injury, right? You have to forgive that to be able to come down. Or it's a significant issue. And it's not just a little event that happened. That's why it's called an injury. So how do we deal with those things? If you think about, you want to learn how to do your relationship better, that's one set of things. And we've talked about that, about having the ARE conversation. But there's some injuries that are stuck, right? So maybe something happened, like there was an affair, or your friend was really mean and continues to be mean to your partner, and you're not taking care of it and they have to see that person all the time. Something like that, that's like it's not being gotten over. So that's sort of more like an injury, and we can deal with those better once we have that sort of foundational understanding that we've been talking about up till this week.